What up guys, Miguel here of Tech, and the Redmi K20 Pro is definitely one of the best smartphones in 2019 so far. Software aside, it is possible to give an objective comparison for the capabilities of both Android phones and iPhones. So today, we're pitting the K20 Pro up against Apple's current big dog, the XS Max. Starting off with design. Both the K20 Pro and the XS Max sport glass backs, and they're both very comfortable to hold. The XS Max does feel heftier in the hands, of course, due to it being slightly longer and wider, while the K20 Pro is just a bit taller. Our unit of the K20 Pro is in its flame red color option, and it does look very good. Our XS Max, on the other hand, is in the gold color, and like usual Apple fashion, it looks very industrial and classy. Next to each other, the K20 Pro does have a more youthful vibe going on, while the XS Max looks like everything you'd expect to see from an iPhone. At the back, you can find the rear camera modules. The K20 Pro's module is placed in the center of the back stacked vertically, with the holographic accented telephoto lens above it. The XS Max gets a dual camera setup placed on the top left, with the dual tone flash found in between the cameras. In front, you get a true all-screen display on the K20 Pro thanks to that pop-up selfie camera that doubles as a notification light. The XS Max gets the notch that made notches a big deal. The one that makes Face ID the industry-leading facial recognition biometric security software. For buttons and ports, on the right side you can find both devices' power button and volume rocker for the K20 Pro. You can find the XS Max's SIM card tray here as well. Up top, you can find the K20 Pro's 3.5mm audio jack, noise-cancelling mic for speakerphone, and the before-mentioned pop-up selfie camera. Nothing for the iPhone up here. On the left side, you can find the XS Max's volume buttons and sound profile switch. Nothing here for the Redmi K20 Pro. At the bottom, exclusive to the K20 Pro, you can find the dual SIM card tray, Type-C port, and single downward firing speaker. For the XS Max, you can find the bottom stereo speakers and lightning port. Okay, so for design, let me remind you all that this category is the most subjective of the bunch, and like I said in the comparison between the S10, the K20 Pro is quite the head turner with its fiery back, true all-screen display, and light-up pop-up selfie camera. Now, with the XS Max in my other hand, I can't help but feel more drawn to the if it ain't broke, don't fix it design language the iPhones have going on. There's just something about the Apple design language that does make something in my head tingle, and I do prefer a classier approach out of the box over a more juvenile one. I mean, if I wanted to make my phone look more wild and out of this world, I'd rather do it with myself, I guess, by slapping on some funky case, or a skin, or even some stickers or something. So yeah, I'm giving design to the iPhone XS Max. Now, moving on to display. The K20 Pro gets a 6.39-inch Full HD Plus Super AMOLED panel, and the XS Max utilizes a 6.5-inch OLED one. The K20 Pro gets Corning Gorilla Glass 5 protection, while the XS Max gets scratch-resistant glass with an audiophobic coating. I'm not really sure how to compare the two, as we don't do much drop tests with our devices, but I do know that iPhones are quite infamous for those spiderweb displays, and that's my 2 cents on that. When it comes to media consumption, both panels look really good. My eyes are more drawn to the colors on the XS Max, but ultimately I do prefer not having that notch when watching the latest Tech videos. With that said, display is only half the story. When it comes to media consumption, the sound coming from that device is just as important. And with that in mind, I'm going to have to give that one to the XS Max for having a stereo speaker setup. That isn't to say that the K20 Pro single speaker produces bad audio. In fact, it produces a good quality audio experience for what it is. Separation is very evident, and the soundstage is pretty full for a single speaker. It is good to know that you get a headphone jack on the K20 Pro, as that would be the best way to consume media from this device in my opinion. I would also like to note that I have had friends replace iPhone XS's before due to some speaker hardware issues, but I'm pretty sure you should be taking that with a grain of salt. So yeah, for display, I'm gonna have to give it to the K20 Pro. That true all-screen display really did take the cake here, but still, props to that iPhone for that speaker quality. Checking out performance. For hardware, the K20 Pro is equipped with the latest Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 7nm chipset and an Adreno 640 GPU. The XS Max uses the Apple A12 Bionic 7nm chipset and a 4-core Apple GPU. The K20 Pro gets a handful of RAM and storage configurations. You can get a 6GB of RAM plus 64 or 128GB of internal storage, or 8GB of RAM plus 128 or 256GB of internal storage. For the XS Max, you can get 4GB of RAM plus either 64, 265, or 512GB of internal storage. Both devices don't come with any expandable storage options, so if you're not a fan of that, I'm letting you guys know. For software, you can get Android 9 Pie out of the box and MIUI 10 skinned on top for the K20 Pro. The XS Max utilizes iOS 12. Now, in terms of interfaces, I always feel like I gotta be on my toes when talking about something of the Android space against iOS. In a general sense, it does come down to preference here. Being an Android user since ever makes me feel like iOS lacks in features, especially if you're not in an apple-to-apple situation. Although, because I'm not particularly a big MIUI user, I placed myself in the shoes of someone who isn't so into the techie stuff, and I can totally see that person being more drawn to iOS compared to MIUI, because it is a bit easier to pick up in my opinion. When it comes to navigating through the interface, both devices were as quick and snappy when it came to jumping between a bunch of open apps, doing some productivity work, and even gaming. I honestly wouldn't expect any less from the specs we're dealing with here. But if you guys were interested in the numbers, I'll have the benchmarks flash on screen right now. When it comes to battery performance, the Redmi K20 Pro has a 4000 mAh cell that utilizes Qualcomm's Quick Charge 4 Plus for charging. The XS Max, on the other hand, packs a 3174 mAh battery that supports 15-watt fast charging, allowing you to achieve 50% capacity in 30 minutes. You also get support for wireless charging here too. Important note, Quick Charge 4 Plus is Qualcomm's 27-watt charging standard, and sadly, a 27-watt charging adapter is not included in the box of the K20 Pro. Also goes for the iPhone, you don't get that 15-watt power adapter in the box. In a standard video loop test, the K20 Pro yielded 27 hours and 36 minutes, while the XS Max got us a respectable 16 hours. This isn't surprising though, considering the smaller battery capacity. If it's anything, it's impressive that you can squeeze that amount of juice from a 3174 mAh battery, considering we got the same results from the S10's 3400 mAh cell. When it comes to biometrics, the K20 Pro comes with Face Unlock now through a software update, and it is slow. What's weird about that is, it isn't the recognition that's slow, it's the fact that you have to first swipe up so the camera pops up to recognize your face. The XS Max's optical facial recognition works quite quick, it's slightly faster than when Face ID was first introduced, but the most important thing is, it's the safest facial recognition software today. That is especially important because that's the only form of biometric security you can get from it. The K20 Pro, on the other hand, also gets an optical pretty quick. And it's actually pretty quick. More recent optical in-display scanners have been getting faster and faster, and it's definitely faster than the Face Unlock, so kudos to that. So for overall performance, I'm giving it to the K20 Pro for having the better numbers and a beefy battery. Lastly, let's take a look at the cameras. Starting from the rear, the Redmi K20 Pro gets a triple camera setup composed of a 48-megapixel main shooter, an 8-megapixel telephoto, and a 13-megapixel ultra-wide. The XS Max, on the other hand, being a relatively older device, gets the dual camera treatment that consists of a 12-megapixel main shooter and a 12-megapixel telephoto. On the front-facing side of things, you get a 20-megapixel selfie shooter for the K20 Pro and a 7-megapixel shooter for the XS Max. Alright, before we check out them samples, quick disclaimer, the K20 Pro's ultra-wide will not factor in too much here to keep things as fair as possible. Real quick though, here's how the K20 Pro's ultra-wide fares against the XS Max's 1X. So now on both devices 1X, right off the bat I noticed a difference in white balance, contrast, and color reproduction. Safe to say that dynamic range is almost on par here. Some of the clouds on the K20 Pro's shots seem a bit more overexposed. I'm not too sure if it's just post-processing bringing up the whites causing this, so here's 2X, and yup, pretty much the same observations here. I have a theory that maybe the K20 Pro's post-processing just ups the blacks and whites in the image, and maybe doesn't fiddle with the contrast too much after all. I mean, upping both the blacks and whites of a photo could make a photo more contrasty, but overall image quality here seems to be on par. In this shot, we can really see a big difference in color reproduction here, and I do like the coloring on the K20 Pro more, but I must say that the colors on the XS Max are closer to reality. Also, the XS Max's photo does seem sharper, but we already know that the XS Max tends to sharpen their image a bit more than the competition. That is again seen here, but it's also worth noting that again, the K20 Pro's whites or highlights are way more overexposed here compared to the XS Max's shot. Here we have me checking out the time. It's clear that the K20 Pro's subject background separation isn't as good as the XS Max's here. Now, I like the XS Max's composition a lot more here, but something about the K20 Pro's colors make this shot look more dramatic, which I do like, in this photo at least. And same thing goes for this shot here. Okay, checking out night mode now. Yes, the XS Max doesn't have night mode, so this won't take too long. This is what the shot looks like on both devices' default photo mode. I'd like to note that the K20 Pro already does a better job here. The XS Max's shot is darker, again, more faithful to reality, and I'm not even in focus. Also, I just noticed that the iPhone post-processing likes to turn highlights into flares a lot, so I don't know how to feel about that yet. This is with the K20 Pro's night mode on. I mean, it's pretty good, saturation and contrast get bumped up, but most importantly, all the dark areas in the shot are now brightened up. Moving to selfies. Here we have me and Arel. The K20 Pro's shot is clearer and overall image quality is better than the XS Max in my opinion, but that post-processing really isn't doing the hardware that much favors here. Even here in the selfie realm, the whites are just brought up a lot. Like, I look like a ghost compared to the XS Max's shot, but if you're into that, I guess that's a plus? See, in this one, I'm just surprised by how much more fair I am on the K20 Pro. And aside from the skin tone, the overexposure with the K20 Pro selfie is just so unappealing. Same story here for the portrait selfie. The XS Max's selfie just looks so much better compared to the Redmi K20's in my opinion. So for cameras, as much as I want to give it to the K20 Pro for having some really good camera hardware on board, I just can't. I'm just not a fan of the post-processing on this device compared to something that processes like the XS Max, Galaxy S10, and even Pixel smartphones. So yeah, I'm giving this one to the XS Max. Alright, now to conclude this video, we're checking out price. The most expensive Redmi K20 Pro is priced at 2,999 Chinese yuan, which is around 22,000 pesos when converted. The iPhone XS Max starts at 74,990 pesos. That is a big difference. Like, what the hell? I just buy a phone and a laptop, you know? So I think that settles it, guys. I may like the sound that comes from the iPhone more. I may like the way it processes image more too, but holy shit. That is quite the price to pay for just those things. I mean, I'm pretty sure iPhone users pay that hefty sum because they're already in the Apple ecosystem, so that may justify it. But just comparing their smartphone with the K20 Pro, I think we all know where the value for price factor is going. So yeah, K20 Pro, you may not have taken down Korean Uncle Sam, but you took a big bite out of the apple. Now tell me, what did you guys think of this smartphone comparison? Let us know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to smack that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit that bell icon so you get notified of our future uploads. Be sure to visit yugatech.com for the latest tech news and reviews. Again, this has been Miguel, and I'll see you in the next.